Hey, great episode on the docket today because we're answering a question from a listener about an underperforming portfolio. Here's the question. My investments didn't do as well in the past 12 months as the whole market has done. Should I be reevaluating my advisor based on this lack of performance? Well, that's a great question. It's one that a lot of people do ask at some point in their investing lives. So should there be a pivot? Do we need to tear apart this question a little bit more to give you a good answer? We're going to find out next. I'll grab John and we'll get started.
In football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Welcome to Red Zone Retirement, everybody. Walter Storholt filling in for Mark Killian once again while he still recovers from that hockey puck to the head. As always, joined by John Mears, of course, fiduciary financial advisor, Mears Money Management. John, hope you're doing well today. I'm excited for this episode with you.
Yeah, doing better than Mark, so I think I'm doing okay. Yeah, so it's we're doing good. I'm kind of as we're recording this, kind of winding down on tax season. Everybody knows I'm kind of a reformed tax preparer, although I still do tax prep for several of my larger clients. But I am kind of getting to the finish line here, so it's kind of good here. So It's kind of nice.
You're ready to go outside and enjoy some good weather and play a little golf or something like that. Or
get outside and just enjoy the 80-degree weather we have today. So
go run some football drills after this, John.
We'll do some up downs. Yeah,
some up downs. Yes, burpees, all sorts of good stuff. Well, you heard the question when we started the show. So hey, investments haven't done well the last 12 months. I'm underperforming the market. Should I now reevaluate my advisor? This person's kind of wondering because of that lack of performance over the past year. So let's dive into this a little bit. The thing that strikes me, I like to pick apart questions a little bit. And the thing that strikes me is, the question asker says the market. Like, what are we defining as the market? Like, that's one area that's kind of loose.
That's where you got to start. Right? That's where you got to start, because it's all comparisons here. So when somebody says my account didn't do as well, and we always like, compared to what? I mean, that's always the first thing. Compared to what? What are you trying to compare this to? You're trying to compare it to your brother-in-law who hit it big on NVIDIA, has done well, and I'm happy for everybody that did well in NVIDIA, but that's one stock, and if you hit it, great. But if you did it with some, fly-by-night Bolivian startup, then you're not going to have done as well. So what are we comparing this to? A lot of people read the headlines. So the two biggest ones that people look at are the S&P or the Dow, because those are the ones that pop up on the screens when you're watching the evening news or when you pick up your phone. That's something that pops up. And that's what people kind of look at. Well, that's only one segment. And I can tell you last year, I've just going through my spring reviews with people, pointing out that last year, what the thing that really knocked out of the ballpark, the Aaron Judge of the investment world, was international. So if you're focused on the S&P and you didn't have international, you'd be looking at going, well, I underperformed international. Well, 2 years ago, I couldn't convince anybody to have international funds. So it was all S&P. So what are you comparing this to? And so that's really what you kind of have to ask if you're going to throw your advisor under the bus. And there are going to be some questions we're going to talk about in a minute here. Maybe you should ask your advisor, but performance alone, just kind of saying, comparing it to something out there in the ether, you're some number that you aren't even sure of. And I heard another advisor say this one time, can you explain, ask a client this, can you explain what the S&P 500 is?
Yeah.
And you're going to get a blank stare back. So it's just a number that they see on the screen. So I try to diffuse that idea right now. What are you comparing this to? And they may have a number and a reason. And so then we can start having a conversation. Well, why is that number important to you? And start working from there. But I always want to know, compared to what? What are you trying to compare this to?
It's a great point. Let's say it's the S&P and somebody's saying, hey, I saw that the S&P, which I understand is a representation of the market, let's say that was up 10% over these last 12 months. I'm only up 5%. This is where you start to have a purpose conversation, right? Especially if it's somebody in retirement or nearing retirement.
Absolutely. So exactly. What's the purpose of your portfolio? Let's just say the mix is 50-50. This is a nice way to, before we even get to the purpose, you're not going to be 100% S&P anyway. So what is the purpose of your portfolio? And I will submit to you that when I primarily work with retirees, and I have one goal that I have with every single retiree, and that's very, very simple: to not run out of money. That is it. Now, there's a lot of other things that go into that, but that is the number one thing we have to make sure we don't run out of money. So
that's kind of that rule number one, and then all the others are like, and go back to rule number one, right? You're always
exactly. So I'm a guy that uses guardrails. I am a big believer in guardrails. I've shown that on other episodes how I use guardrails. But basically, what we do is we kind of come up with a dynamic distribution strategy. We say, oh, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you have X number of dollars, and I'm going to use a round number. We'll call it $1 million. And the dynamic distribution rate on a 60-40 portfolio may be 5.4%. So we'll use that as a number. That's $54,000 a year, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So that is the number that we can use where we will never run out of money in your lifetime. And I'm going to put that in air quotes. We can't guarantee anything, obviously, but that's the number that we will use so that we never run out of money. Now, we can, depending on how the market conditions go, we can either tighten our belt a little bit or expand that a little bit, but that's kind of that range we're going to be in. So if I find out that this is the number we have to have that you need to live off of so that you never run out of money and you enjoy a dignified and independent retirement, well, then that's how I back into what type of portfolio we're going to use. It may be an 80-20, it may be 50-50, who knows? A typical retiree will be around that range of a 60-40 portfolio. That's 60% stocks and 40% bonds. It's not etched in stone. It's not Moses chiseling this and coming down from the mountain, but it is something that we have as a baseline here. And I'm going to use this as an example. Well, 60-40 portfolio, by its very definition, isn't going to match the S&P 500 because it's not all in the S&P 500. We have some in stocks and we have some in bonds. What is the purpose of bonds in our portfolio? That's a better question. Rather than worrying about the purpose of stocks is, what is the purpose of the bonds in our portfolio? It's an anchor. That's what it's there for. Stocks will fluctuate, and except for 2022, bonds are a strong anchor you'll have in your portfolio. And the reason why we have that, because again, we said we want to get that $54,000, that's $4,500 a month, to all you mathematicians out there. We want to make sure we get that $4,500 a month on time, every single month, direct deposit in our bank account. Well, the stock portion of your portfolio may be going up and down, but if you have $1 million and 40% of it is in bonds, that's $400,000. If you're taking out $54,000 a year, that's almost 8 years of money we have sitting in bonds that we know that we don't have to worry about fluctuation. So that's the purpose of the bonds, so we can survive the market downturns and make sure you keep getting your direct deposits on time every month. The markets tend to recover, usually within 6 to 9 months. Sometimes it'll take a couple years. Rarely will it take 6, 7, or 8 years. But that's the comfort we have in having that bond portion part of your portfolio. That's why we have it there. So forget the stock portion. That's why we have the bond portion. The stock portion is there simply so we can outrun inflation and have some growth in our portfolio. How we get to that portion is, again, international, some domestic, some value, some growth. So small companies, we have a very scientific way we come up with this so that the goal is to have as much return as we can with as little volatility. That's really the goal here. So the goal isn't simply, how much money can you make me? That's not the goal. The goal is, how can I make sure that you have, again, good returns with a minimum amount of volatility so that you never run out of money? That's the goal. So that's the purpose of the account. If your account is to make as much money as possible, I can set that up for you. We can, but I can't guarantee you won't run out of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Go back to your first, to this question asker, go back to your first visit, your first meeting with your advisor. Did they say the goal is to beat the S&P every year? And if they did, and you are falling behind by half or more, whatever that percentage is, yeah, you got a legitimate gripe. But if they said, no, the purpose is the things you just described, it paints a very different picture, and we have to keep that in mind. But I would imagine sometimes clients forget that, right? Sometimes you forget, you go through the planning process, you do it, and then all of a sudden you're seeing news about things being up, and you look at your percentage return, you're like, well, hold on a second, why are we not? So sometimes it's a reminder, I guess.
That's one thing about the news too. You have to, it's hard to do. I get it, people. I do know we're all tied to our phones, but you have to ignore the financial commentary that's out there and know that you have this is why having a good plan is so important. Having a plan written in black and white that you can look at. And I give this to people every year. We update our guardrails. There's a number in black and white that we're looking at. So it's not just, hey, wait out the market or whatever. There's a number we're looking at. And if the markets do go down or they go up, there's a number we're looking at. Hey, we can give you a raise or we need to tighten our belt slightly. So we look at these numbers. One thing that we also point out is what length of time are we looking at to judge here?
I the whole 12 months is kind of arbitrary in a way, right?
Yes. Oh, I've been doing this long enough where I have people questioning things after 3 months. Going, hey, so I've gotten to the point. I've learned the hard way. Obviously, I always joke with people. In fact, hey, if we're gonna onboard you, and you're gonna invest in this diversified mix of stocks and bonds.
Yeah.
You know Murphy's Law here, don't you, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Yeah. That means as soon as you get on board here, the market's going to go down 5 or 10%. That's just, now we know the market's going to ebb and flow as we go. And again, we've given you these guardrails, so we shouldn't panic, but that's what's going to happen. As soon as you come on board here, we're going to have a minor correction. I'm letting you know that ahead of time, so you don't have to worry about calling me. However, if you do want to call me, I'll talk to you about it. But there was a funny story I tell people about Eugene Fama, who was kind of the godfather of the Chicago School of Economics. And I was at a conference with him at Dimensional Fund Advisors in Austin, Texas. And he had a room full of advisors, and he asked a question. It's half rhetorical, but half factual. He goes, how long do we have to look at data to know that we actually have a trend? And one advisor says 3 years, another says 8 years and 10 years and 15 years. And he kind of chuckles and he goes, and he came with some, and I don't remember the exact number, something like 57 years, some crazy number to know, okay, that's the trend. That's the direction we're going in. So when I heard that, I realized, hey, it's very difficult to tell anything in the short term. Anything can happen within 1 year. And even within 2 or 3 years, it could be up or down for whatever reason. It could be because Bill Gates sneezed on his way to the bathroom. It could be anything.
Right.
It could cause the markets to go up or down. And so that's why if you're checking your balances every day, you will drive yourself crazy. You'll absolutely drive yourself nuts. Look at the ups and downs. And again, the headlines say the market soars or the market plummets. That's just what it says every day. Well, if you're plummeting every day, you're going to have a little bit tough time mentally with this. So time matters. A 1 year is not enough of a context. Even if you're going to judge your advisor on that, I would still say 1 year isn't enough. Whether you're using me as an advisor or any other advisor out there with one of the other companies, give them a little bit of time to make sure that their plan is going to work.
You could look at any stock chart, right? And you know how you can change the timeline view very easily? Like look at the 1 day chart, then look at the 7 day chart, then look at the 1 month chart, 3, 6, a year, then hit max. Really gives you perspective of you change that view window and you can have very different sentiments as you look at an individual stock.
I do that all the time. If I have somebody that's if we're doing a Zoom call or whatever, and I have that available, and I just pull up an S&P 500 chart, and I'll just show them. I'll just do the 10-year view. Just the 10-year view. Forget that they're older and they should have a 30-year view on things, but I'll just go with a 10-year view. And we're up, even with what's happened recently, the kind of the hijinks in the market, the last couple months, even with all that, people are like, oh, I lost money. Oh, dude, let's look back to where we were at 10 years ago. You're up and you're way up right now. You're way up. So you're looking so narrowly that it's kind of silly. So that's a great example, Walter.
Since you're a sports guy, it's kind of like manipulating sports statistics, right? Where you can make a bad quarterback look like he's in this, like there's only 3 quarterbacks that have ever achieved this very specific stat metric. And it's like, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and I don't know, some quarterback that's just like a backup or something like that, right? And it's like, okay, you're manipulating a very specific time window and some random stats to be like, these are the only 3 guys who have ever done it, which makes it sound way more impressive than
it's crazy. Well, I point out to people, I'm an Angels fan. Everybody that knows me knows that, and it's a very tough position to be in. But last year, the Angels swept the Dodgers and actually went on an 8-game winning streak in the middle of June, late May, early June. And everybody thinks, oh, if you look at that slice, the Angels looked like they were the best team in baseball. They were not.
Yeah.
They were one of the worst teams in baseball by the end of the season. But that just shows you anything can happen at any time. And so at that same time, the Dodgers struggled a little bit and they ended up winning the World Series. So if you take a sliver, a week, even a month during the baseball season, it could be anything. By the time you get to the full 6 months of a baseball season, it's kind of worked its way out, and that's where you have your trend. But that's a great example using football statistics. You can use it in baseball season. If again, in the short term, anything can look good or bad. It's what we have to look at in the big picture, which is hard to do, people. I do get that. I understand.
I feel like we've beaten this one up pretty good, John. But before we run off, let's play devil's advocate and say, all right, well, at some point there has to be a red flag that underperformance would show us. So like, where would that be? When should we be like, okay, yeah, actually this is a problem that we need to investigate?
Yeah, if we talk about the purpose of your portfolio, and if your advisor can't go over that purpose. Now, I just spoke to somebody yesterday. They're a client I knew from my tax days, and they kind of reached out to me, but they're not going to be a good fit for me right now. So they went to another gentleman, and they just want to bounce what this other guy was doing, and he just has sold his mutual funds and is buying some stocks with it. And he's kind of asking, is that okay? And I'm not sure whether that's good or bad. I don't care. Just ask him why. Why is he doing that? What is the reason for that?
Yeah.
So that's all. Just ask him. If he can't articulate that and know how that fits in with you, and again, I don't want to know what the returns are. That's not my point. I want to know why that portfolio is good for you in the long run. That's what we're asking here. If you haven't had a client review, I hear horror stories of people trying to reach their guy, and the guy never returns a phone call. I have one of my mother's best friends who works with me now. She tried for, I believe, over a year and a half to get a hold of their guy, and they can't. Wow. So you should have regular reviews. Now, we do 2 times a year. In March and in October, we meet with clients, but at least once a year. Yeah. Once every other year, but it's got to be something where we are meeting fairly regularly. And then again, these are warning signs if your advisor, and I always talk about, again, where I use guardrails. If your advisor says, when the market is declining, that his strategy is to wait it out, that is not a strategy. You need to know what you should be doing, because there will be a point if the market's declining where you should do something. And I have it written out what you should be doing, what precisely you should be doing. So if your advisor just says, well, wait it out, the market always comes back. No, there are some things you might be wanting to do. And I'm going beyond just rebalancing, but rebalancing is a starting point. But then again, do you need to tighten your belts? Because if the market goes down, maybe you do need to decrease your distributions from $4,500 a month to $4,200 a month. And I know that's a small tweak, but it could have huge results in the long run for you if you just adjust ever so slightly on your distributions. And that is an active thing you may need to do. And that's better than just waiting it out in a declining market.
All good points. I know we could keep diving in from there, but we'll cap it there for today's episode. Again, great question from this listener. I know we beat it up really good, but it is a common question. We didn't mean to pounce on you too hard here, but there's lots of reasons why this needs investigating and needed to be explored a little bit. Main moral of the story today, if you're not planning with purpose, if you don't know the why behind your portfolio, that's the big red flag. And so just make sure that you're doing that kind of planning with your advisor. And if you're not, and you want to see if you're a good fit to work with John Mears and his team, you can certainly do that. We've got contact information up on the screen for our YouTube audience. If you're just an audio listener, just check the description of today's show. We've got phone number, website, all the good stuff listed for you there to check out. And you can schedule a time to meet with John and talk a little bit more about your specific situation and dive into all of that. So certainly invite you to do that. John, thank you for your help. Hopefully Mark will be back with you on the next episode if he's healed up. Maybe still a little residual black eye perhaps, but
make it look tough. It'll be good. Yeah.
He better bring a good story to the table for you next time. So we appreciate it. We'll see everybody next time right back here on Red Zone Retirement.
John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by rescuemyretirement.net. That's rescuemyretirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's rescuemyretirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.